Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on money wasted. I'm Mallory Price, and will monitor today's session. Joining me today are Brad Douglas and David Bull from Shipley Associates, and Paige Frame, President at McKinnon Moharan. Thank you for everyone who submitted questions when you registered. And as always, if you have questions during the webinar, please type them into the questions tab on your control panel. We will get to as many questions as we can. So like I said, we will be talking about the top 10 ways we waste money on proposals, thereby the title, Money Wasted. Not only will we be talking about the ways we waste money on proposals, but ideas for avoiding those money wasters. So Brad, without further ado, I will turn the time to you.
Okay, thank you, Mallory, and thank you, David and Paige and everyone who's with us today for this webinar. This has been a very interesting exercise to pulse the market and talk to practitioners who work on proposals virtually every day and to solicit their input and get feedback from them on what are some of the top ways we are inefficient and we maybe waste money, resources when we're working on proposals. So this has been a really enlightening exercise. We actually have ranked based on feedback we got from proposal practitioners, ranked some of the ways we waste money, and we'll address those in that order, with number one being the biggest money waster. So you'll have to stay tuned to see what that top number one reason or way that we waste money is. So thanks again for joining us and spending time with us. Before we jump into the top 10, really quickly, we had several questions from people who registered that were the same. And they wanted us to at least touch on this topic, is why is there such a variance in how people do proposals, and why are win rates in companies so varied? And aligned with that question was, how do we get our leadership? How do we get our companies to embrace change? And if we know we have to change to improve the way we win business and compete, how do we get people on board with that? And so thus, just a really quick explanation on that and some ideas and thoughts. You can see company A, B, C, and D here, 4 companies represented, all 4 with different win rates on competitive bids. And here is the paradox, is most companies, they know what proposal activities they should be performing. They get it. They know how to put out a proposal and do it, so they know it. Most companies have some ability to perform on these activities, or they can get training and build some competency and gain some tools and so forth. And most companies actually know the measures of proposal success. You know, how should we be measuring our win rate and tracking and so forth? Here's the paradox. Companies with low win rates, they lack a commitment. They lack the commitment to do those 3 bullets up above, to perform, you know, and to measure, and to focus on the activities that really matter. It's that lack of commitment. It's that fly by the seat of your pants mentality of leadership that draws us down and creates those lower win rates. So how do we get leaders to buy in more for proposal best practices? Many of you have probably seen this change curve before. Adopting any change in how we do business, whether it's proposals or otherwise, it's a process and it's a hard road. You know, at first, we try to introduce change into the organization, and you know, we get a certain group of people that say, no, we're good with what we've got. We like the way we're doing it. We're happy as we are. Then you get a group of people that slip into the denial mode and say, this proposal best practice stuff, this isn't for me. This isn't the way I work. I'm not going to do it that way. Then you get resistors and people that actually come out and say, no, I'm not having any of this. And they revolt and they rebel against this change. And then you finally get a group that gets on board a little bit and says, you know what, maybe this might work. Maybe if we did proposals this way, or maybe if we engaged our capture team this way, maybe it would work for us. Then we start building some hope, seeing that the change might actually work for us. This is where we get to commitment. And so there is no easy answer to how do we get management to buy in to proposal best practices. It has to be a commitment from the top. And there is no easy answers. Our key leadership stakeholders have to own that and have to say, yep, this is going to work for us. We're going to invest in it. We're going to embrace best practice. So here's just a couple of quotes. If leaders implement change with passion and reward everyone who buys in, eventually all the noise around change will stop sounding like noise. And we can actually move on and get things done. Real change takes guts. We have to look at bolder, sometimes scarier ways that are unpredictable outcomes if we're really going to succeed. So those are just some ideas. Those are some ideas to address a lot of those questions that you all submitted when you registered about, we want to change, we want to embrace best practice, but we just can't get people on board. It's hard and it takes time, but we do need those internal champions, those leadership champions to drive the change. Okay, David, I'm going to pick on you first, and we're going to start at the number 10 way that we waste money on proposals. Will you take this one away and talk about this one?
Folks, thanks, Brad. Folks, this has to be frustrating. This kind of answers the question or talks to the question about incumbency. And with incumbency, we feel we should win the proposal more often than lose the proposal. But I attended a webinar in the middle of last year from Dell Tech on trends. And one of the trends that they showed was happening in 2018 as followed up from 2017, where incumbents were losing recompetes at the highest rate they had been losing them in recent history. And if we submit a losing proposal, what is that? That is wasted money. So, why that? I think it's just because we are not looking at it as a serious effort. We're getting a little lazy. We're taking some shortcuts. We have a great relationship with them, but hey, all we have to do is show up with a, half-baked effort and we'll win. They can't do it without us. Well, other people think they can and perhaps have submitted a stronger bid. The bottom line, folks, is for all of these reasons that you see on this page, even though we are the incumbent, we are losing at the highest percentage in recent memory, and a lost proposal, as I said, is wasted effort. So how do we fix that? Well, tips on winning as the incumbent. Look at some of these. We bid to win with innovative strategies, technical and management approaches. We have to take a look at these proposals as if they are a brand new proposal for us and we have everything to lose, because the bottom line is, folks, we do. So we need to take a look at the best value for the customer. If we're simply thinking that, hey, we'll rest on our past performance and we'll rest on our CPARs and we'll rest on our, solution that we provided in a commercial or a federal or an international environment, folks, that's not going to get it done. So we have to make the effort to win. We can demonstrate new ideas and continuous improvement. We can be responsive to the RFP and the statement of work. Of course, we'll do this, but we cannot rest on our laurels and suggest that incumbency by itself will win. Present a vision for the future with relevant examples. Folks, here's where we should really shine. We have specific, relevant past performance and experience that no one else has specific to this. And so we should have some very, very strong elements of our proposals that help us win versus lose. So team with partners that add value, take a look at other environments and create compelling reasons for not changing. And above all, the last one is ghosting. We do a lot of competitive assessments when we look at proposals for people. And if you're the incumbent, one of the things you have more so than anybody else is you have relevancy to the current environment. You know the people you're going to be working with. You know the schedules that they need. You know the manufacturing timeframes that they suggest. Folks, we need to suggest that we're in a partnership and what value we bring to the table. When we begin to look at these proposals as if they are new efforts from the very beginning, treat them as such, and do all the things that Brad suggested that we should be doing, and don't resist, then we will reverse that trend of losing as the incumbent and not waste that money on losing proposals.
Thank you, David. I was actually kind of surprised to see this on the list of top 10 money wasters, but after I saw it and thought about it, what a waste, what a drain to go into a recompete on a contract we already own and take things for granted, like you said, and sit back and think we got it in the bag. Huge waste. So very, very relevant to many of us who are recompeting for work that we've already won once, and we need to compete it again. Okay, let's move to number 9. And Paige, I'm gonna ask you if you would handle this one. You do a fantastic job in writing and creating messages that are compelling, you and your firm. And so would you talk about this number 9, expecting expert proposal content from non-writers?
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, coming from the writing perspective, I want to believe no one can do what I can do. but from the same side, I can't do what technical contributors can do. So I think it's very important as you're going into any proposal to really understand people's strengths and core competencies. And like this says, don't expect an auto mechanic to fix your laptop. You should know what people are good at and use that to build a really great proposal, and not expect your technical contributors to be spinning their wheels trying to figure out how to make a proposal sound good when that's not what they're great at. So here's some tips on how to avoid that. First of all, like I just said, clarifying expectations, making sure that they know, that your writers know that what you're expecting from them, and then what your SMEs are supposed to be giving those writers so that they can put something together. Sitting down and brainstorming with SMEs to identify benefits of each feature. You don't want to sit down and say, what is the benefit? But start a conversation and try to pull that from them, asking questions like, why is this cool? What excites you about this? Why does this matter to the client? And really getting the benefits out of it that way. In the same way, explaining your overall win strategy to all contributors so that they know that they're not just giving information about how the system works or how they're going to build something, but they really understand how we're trying to win this, what are our themes and what's important to the client and what our strengths are. Even though you should not expect them to be expert writers, you can give writing tips to anyone that's helping on a proposal. So there are some things that we'll actually go over a little bit later on general good writing that anyone can learn and become a better writer. And finally, make sure that you do have built into your schedule some editing and revision loops, and make sure that your contributors know that those are built in, so that you're not asking them to write a final draft right out of the gate, but just understand that they can jot some notes down, that this is an iterative process, and that it'll be really interesting and compelling in the end, and that the first draft is really just about getting the idea out on the paper.
Boy, thanks, Paige. That really is good. And just one other tidbit on my end. If we don't do these things that you just talked about, the next time we go to a technical SME and ask them to participate in a proposal or provide content, they're not going to want to do it.
Great point. Yeah.
You know, and we're gonna build walls and lose a great resource. So great tips and ideas on how to engage with those that are non-writers and how to avoid wasting that valuable resource. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Number 8, money waster. I'm going to go ahead and address rather quickly, and then ask Mallory to recite a little poetry for us here. But number 8 that showed up in our discussions with practitioners is overdependence on automation. So notice it says overdependence. It doesn't say that automation is a bad thing. It's a great thing. All of the Microsoft Word built-in tools that help us automate and manage projects and track versions, that's fantastic. But no two proposals are the same, like that first bullet says. They're not all created equal. We need to use automation only where it fits best and not try to force a square peg into a round hole just because we've purchased an automation tool. If we're going to use automation, we have to train everyone adequately and not turn them loose, before we're ready to actually go live on that new process or tool. And we really need to beta test proposal automation tools. Make sure they're actually functioning like we think they're going to do it. So try before you buy is kind of the guideline here. And just a fact, artificial intelligence has not replaced compelling customer-focused proposal content. There's still this human element. One of the tools we've come to rely on, which is a fantastic tool, of course, is spell check and grammar check and things like that. So we're just going to rehearse a little poem here, and I think you'll get it. You'll understand the danger and the potential wasted effort and money if we over-rely and rely too heavily on automation. Mallory, would you mind reading these verses for us?
I will do my best. I have a spelling checker. It came with my PC. It plainly marks for my review mistakes I cannot see.
Good.
I strike a key and type a word and wait for it to say. Whether I am wrong or right, it shows me straight away.
Boy, they're all spelled right.
As soon as a mistake is made, it knows before too long, and I can put the error right. It's rarely ever wrong.
Good job.
I have run this poem through it. I am sure you're pleased to know. It's letter perfect all the way. My checker told me so.
Okay. So I think the point is obvious. Over-reliance on some of the tools we have is dangerous and risky. And it would be a shame to invest tens of thousands of dollars, maybe more, on a beautiful proposal only to depend on spell check to catch every wrong word. And I'll bet you we as a whole could sit in an auditorium somewhere and share war stories for hours, but we won't do that on this webinar. Thank you, Mallory.
You're welcome.
Just a good explanation of the challenge we face. Okay, number 7, money waster. David, I'm going to pitch this your way. It's kind of like rolling dice on this one. So would you address poor or incomplete bid decisions?
You bet, Brad. Folks, here's a fact. If you have a 50% win rate, that is not really actually too bad. I mean, it means you're winning half the bids that you are responding to. What's the other side of that, though? That means you are losing the other 50%. Back to the wasted money. 1 in 2 of the proposals that go out the door are not winning. Why and how can we prevent that? Basically, folks, I think we prevent that, or, a lot of your questions centered around how do we get better? And part of that is to have a strong process. We recognize 7 business steps, and each one of these steps has a decision gate review in it. And each one of these decision gate reviews demands that we are mature in our decision making. We are not afraid to say no, or we're not afraid to say, boy, we need more information to make this bid decision. You know, I've been in the proposal industry quite a while, and, you know, I've seen the oncoming of information technology and the abundance of information. And so now we know a lot about information. We can research when proposals are coming out, but it wasn't always this way. And a lot of times in the past, I can remember sitting in an office and an account manager or a senior leader would come with a proposal in hand. In other words, it was already out. And he would say, hey, here you go. Here's your next effort. And you're like going, oh my goodness. And what did that tell us? That told us that there was really no preparation. There was no forewarning. There was no information gathered competitively in a capture process. And we were bidding everything in sight. And folks, we Shipley have an awful lot of suggested information that says all of these companies that are bidding hundreds are pretty much just bidding because they think, well, okay, every one we bid, 50% we win, 50% we lose. And what we need to do, folks, is we need to take a look at gates 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And at every step of the way, we need to have a complete gate review that has questions, that has the right people, that has the right intelligence. And we need to be able to say at each one of these, is this the right effort to go after? And folks, there's a million reasons, yes or no. Each one of you has different situations, different environments. And the good news is all these can be customized. But what's more important is that you have that process in place. And to prevent those 1 and 2 being, lost, we have a lot of information that says by filtering out the ones that have the lower probability of wins, the ones we shouldn't even be bidding, now we're actually bidding less, but guess what? We're winning more because we have the maturity, we have the processes, we have the gate review, and we ask ourselves the very important questions at each step of the way. Is this the right business to be pursuing? And we're not afraid to say no and exit, or at least mitigate. So you can see this slide is really busy, but the point is at each one of these you can begin to see at the salmon color diamonds in the middle, each one of these has an off ramp. And so as a capture plan, capture intelligence is continually evolving, it's continually growing. Some of the proposals, big proposals that are coming out now, have been in the works for several years. And so we should have plenty of information. We should have all kinds of competitive intelligence. And we ought to be able to tell ourselves, okay, are we in the right position? What are the company's needs, and can we handle them? Who are the competitors, and is it wired for someone else, or do we have a legitimate chance? What's the cost? Can we make money, or will it just never be right for us? And then finally, how do we align, and what are our core competencies, and can we do it? And so, be true to this decision criteria. I've seen a lot of companies that actually have this, formatted and in PowerPoint presentations, and each one of them has very specific questions along the way that ask these questions. And of a preliminary solution, if a preliminary cost, if preliminary strategies aren't developed at the bid decision process, then there's probably a good reason not to bid, because we just don't have the answers, or the idea better be to go out and get those answers so we can come with a more complete picture. Again, folks, to prevent the waste is to have better intelligence to the opportunities that you're bidding, and not be afraid to say, no, this just doesn't align with what we want to bid on. And so, let's not waste the money. Let's not burn out the people. Let's not ruin the the morale in here, and let's focus on what we have a legitimate chance of winning.
Thank you, David. On this chart we're looking at now too, that was a great explanation. Be true to the process. It gets back to those early few slides about leadership, and sometimes it takes guts and it takes courage, and it's difficult to decide to no bid after an initial investment. But I just wanted to draw everyone's attention to those bottom squares there. Whether we're a big company, a small company, it doesn't matter. At some point, like David said, we have to make either formal or informal decisions to continue the pursuit or gracefully bow out. And what we're looking for at each one of these decision points along the continuum of trying to win the business is we're seeking authority from that leader, that key stakeholder in our company, whether it's the CFO, our vice president of business development. We have to secure that authority from whoever is in authority to move ahead. So you can see if we've made a pursuit decision there in that third column over, if we say yes, then give me the authority to continue the pursuit. That's what I need at that key decision gate. I don't need someone, saying if this, if that. Just give me that authority. Same with those bid decisions. If the person in charge, capture manager, whoever it is, says, yep, let's continue on, we validated the bid decision, then give me that authority to continue with the proposal and bring it to some conclusion. So thanks for going through that, David. Now, this is actually in alignment, so I'm going to let you just continue, if you don't mind, talking about the number 6 money waster, which is poor or absent proposal reviews, reviewing the proposal along the way.
All right. Folks, up to this point in time, we've lost big proposals, and that's easy money, and that's large money. I've worked on proposals. You all have worked on proposals where the budgets have probably been millions of dollars, and if you lose, that's millions of dollars. It's very trackable. There's overhead costs, there's hard costs, there's soft costs. It's easy to track. Here's a subtle one that, if we're not paying attention, can really drive up costs in a hurry because we didn't prepare well and we didn't have the discipline to do these reviews. So, this chart, what it suggests is in those 7, areas, the 7, business areas, there are appropriate times where we should have reviews, and we need these reviews. We desperately need these reviews. As Brad just suggested, we want to bring in the people. We want to get everybody on the same page. We want to, as early as possible, get everybody to understand our solution, what our cost parameters are, and all of those elements that make up the end as early as possible in the beginning. Why? Because if we don't have buy-in from the management early on, if we don't have a commonality of what our strategies are going to be for our writers, if we don't have a frozen solution that the subject matter experts can write to, what happens? Down the road, when we have a subsequent review, a pink team or a red team, and if they haven't been involved, if we don't have a frozen solution, if the right people haven't been notified of the strategies and are writing kind of in a vacuum, what now has to happen? At a late period, when now we see the end coming up very quickly, now all of a sudden we have significant change because we didn't get the buy-in, we didn't get the consensus, we didn't get the solution frozen early, and so now everything begins to move, and now we may not have enough. So instead of having a solid solution, now we're bringing in more people, and what's this doing? This is adding more unnecessary costs that shouldn't have been there. We now are looking at more pricing because, well, we changed the solution and everything has to be revisited. So folks, have the discipline. No, we're going to see a slide here in a second that kind of suggests where in a time frame that these belong. But the point is make sure that you have these reviews built in, that you have the right people, and you've got the champions as high up in the food chain as you can go. I've seen executive board members be on these teams, and you want these people here because at the end it's going to be their consensus and their buy-in that says, yes, this is the very best solution we have. And when you have that, guess what? You're going home early and you're on time. And so the point is build these reviews in, get the right people involved, make sure you know and have a clear understanding of what the goal of each review is, and make it a positive. It's, yes, there's going to be some hurt because there's going to be some change and so on and so forth. But the earlier the change, is identified and needed, the much better it is to be placed into the process, and the less costly are the changes in the end when, oh my gosh, we got a whole lot of new stuff coming in because we have new solutions or new people. So build them in there, take the time and have the maturity to execute and listen to the input and put it into your solution, and you'll have a much better solution that I think will have a much higher probability of winning.
Great, great ideas and thoughts, Dave. And I just want to echo that the temptation for us is to skip reviews or shortchange them because we view them as kind of time-consuming and, like you said, painful. But at a minimum, even if you're, at least one of the questions that came in, what if you're a proposal organization of one or two people? Even at that, if you're bidding on work and it's competitive, even the minimum you should do are these 3 reviews here we show as far as review 1, review 2, review 3, and we can color code them or whatever. But we need to, early in the proposal phase, we need to just validate our strategy. That first proposal review, are we on the right path? Are we really pointing to the right win strategy? And then the red team, when we've got a near final draft of our content, let's really tear through that, look through it and pick it apart. And are we compelling? Are we responsive? And then of course, someone in the organization, even if you're a shop of 1 or 2 people, someone ultimately has to pull the trigger and say, yep, let's hit the submit button. And that's the gold team. We've looked over everything and ready to go. So at a minimum, those are 3 reviews that we really need to take care of. Okay, I think I'll take this number 5, money waster, and it's no awareness of customer hot buttons, which is a hot button for me because we see way too many proposals being worked on, being generated, and those that are generating the proposal have no idea really what the underlying issues are or problems are that we're trying to solve. We're just writing about a bunch of features. And so this is a huge money waster, to have people create content that is nothing more really than a spec sheet or a list of features, and it has nothing to do really with what the underlying problem the customer is trying to solve. Huge money waster when there's not that communication, or when we're just bidding blindly. And sometimes we do. Sometimes we have to just bid at an RFP that drops in our lap. We don't know the customer. We don't know their hot buttons. We don't know their problems. But, we bid it anyway. And, sometimes that is okay. But if we're doing our homework and we're really going through those phases David talked about, where we're really seeing what's out there, putting together a campaign, a capture plan, a visit plan, a call plan. Then we really put out a compelling proposal and we stop wasting money on losers. So work closely with the sales and capture team. Find out, try to understand what's motivating the customer. Go to if you're bidding to the government, go to their agency homepage and find out what their mission is, their vision is. If you're bidding to another business, go to their homepage, look at their values, vision, mission. Look at their press releases. What has the president of the company for this customer been saying? Are there priorities? Be aware of the underlying issues, the problems they're trying to solve. If we don't, then we don't have discriminators. We can't differentiate our solution in our proposal if we fail to do this. Anyone can put out a list of facts and features about their products and service, anybody. But to really discriminate and stand out to the customer, we have to know how we're different and better. So what is it that sets us apart? And choose wording in the proposal that's familiar to the customer. Not our wording, but wording that they understand. Get rid of the technical jargon and the terminology that we use internally and use wording familiar to them. So that's a good one. I mean, this was, I'm not surprised to see this on the list of money wasters. You know, that we don't do our homework, we don't understand the customer, and we just kind of bid blindly. So that was number 5. Let's go on to money waster number 4, and I'm going to take this one as well. Late solution freeze and waffling. So David actually mentioned this earlier, which is fantastic. Boy, we get 3/4 of the way through the proposal, only to find out that the solutions team has changed their mind, and we're going to actually bid a different solution than what we started with, and we're back to square one. So this idea, and I'm not suggesting it shouldn't happen and it doesn't happen in the world for good reason. I'm not suggesting that. There are reasons why a solution changes midstream during a proposal effort. Maybe we've acquired a company, maybe we've acquired a capability, or a teaming partner has now joined us and we have an additional strength we didn't know about. So there are reasons, of course, for changing up the solution, but when we're waffling and we're just not firm in our commitment on what we're bidding, that's when we're wasting money. So this can happen with recent company acquisitions. It can delay the solution freeze. You know, maybe we got to freeze the proposal a little bit if we're uncertain on the solution, and not waste money doing a proposal twice or 3 times. A lot of top companies are really good at this. Second bullet here. They actually facilitate and conduct solutioning workshops where they actually create various scenarios based on a few different solution options. This gives the proposal team then something to work with. And so, you know, I encourage you to consider that, you know, work through various solution scenarios in advance, early in the proposal, so that you're not, if the solution does shift slightly, you're not starting from square one. And by all means, break down the barriers of communication. The solution team has to be informed and has to be on the same page as the proposal team, and vice versa. We can't just go through solutioning in a vacuum and not inform the proposal team along the way that there might be changes coming. So we see this, and obviously the practitioners we talk to asking for their top money wasters saw this as a big one. So just a heads up there and some tips and ideas. All right. Well, David, you're the master proposal manager here, so I'm gonna ask you to address number 3, which is I can see why this is near the top of the list. not adhering to a proposal schedule. So would you go ahead and maybe address this one?
Folks, pens down means pens down. We have to enforce that. As proposal managers, that's probably one of our biggest headaches. But again, what happens is by not adhering to that schedule, you introduce or you allow to have introduced into your environment, schedule creep. And what that means now is additional people typically have to get added that weren't counted on to begin with. There is a relationship between almost everybody's input, and when one person doesn't contribute, now other people are waiting and, charging hours and running up wasted money that just doesn't have to happen. So, at the very beginning when you have a kickoff, that's the time when I would recommend that you have your proposal schedule in place. And folks, here's a skill set that every good proposal manager must have, and that's, to know what kind of time it's going to take for authors to write, for accounting people to do the pricing upon the solution that's been created, to have reviewers and editors and writers take a look at the engineering writing and make it readable, and then having the reviews and taking the time to adjudicate the comments. And then of course, where we always tend to say, oh, if it's due the 19th, we can be finished with the red team on the 18th and get it out. No, you've got to have time for production and to allow the quality of the document to occur. So, have this schedule out early, almost look everybody in the eye that's on your team and gain consensus, build key milestones and reviews into the schedule. Those 3 that Brad talked about are a minimum. There's others depending upon the scale of the proposal. But, the point is have them clearly identified, because, here's a factoid. Senior leadership have busy agendas, and if you think you're going to ask them the day before to participate in a pink or a red team, you're not going to get them. And so the earlier those schedules, the earlier those meetings, the earlier you can invite them, the better and higher probability you'll have them of being there to participate and having an effective, review meeting. And again, make sure when you say pens down, you say pens down, because things have to happen. There has to be, for example, time frame after pens down on your solution for the editors, the writers, the production, the desktop publish, the graphics people. All of those people have to have time to get that document in shape for a red team exam. If you don't, and it's not in good shape, guess what? You're going to get an unnecessary amount of criticism, which is going to cause an unnecessary amount of rework, which is going to cost what? Wasted money. Establish a negotiation process for changing any milestones or due dates. Yes, there are rare occasions when someone, might be a key person in the company and they might be working on 3 or 4 projects. Yours is a lower priority. They might need some extension, but at least know that. Don't just sit there and, oh, hey, today was the due date for this, and don't have a reason why something's not there. You have to hold these people accountable. And, finally, secure management and leadership. Sometimes we do not have the authority to bind these people. And so go to your manager and, hey, Brad's not getting his work in on time, and he's causing the whole rest of the team to fall a little bit behind. Go to Brad's manager and see if they can help. So, folks, it's simply a matter of communication and hold people accountable. That will minimize the wasted money by bringing in additional resources or eliminating a lot of unnecessary rework.
Awesome. Yeah, it's you were right on when you said this is one of the key roles of a good quality proposal manager is adhering to that schedule, and that is where a lot of money becomes wasted. Thank you, David. All right, we're down to the final 2 money wasters here, and Paige, this next one's right up your alley. So I'm going to ask you if you would address this quickly, and then we've got kind of a little, I don't even know what you call it, a little rhyme that Mallory is going to walk through to kind of show some things associated with bad writing.
Perfect. Thanks,
Paige?
Brad. Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised that this is number 2 because so much money is wasted on bad writing with proposals that either you're writing the whole proposal and it doesn't make sense and so you lose the bid, or you just spend too much time revising and putting a lot of resources and money into trying to make something sound good when you got bad writing. So number 1 kind of goes with the first tip here, kind of goes with what David was just talking about, is that you have to have a plan in place. So a plan up front where you're going to have your revision loops, your editing loops, come up with an outline or a prototype to determine what themes you're going to have in each area, which hot buttons you're going to touch on, all before you put pen to paper, so that when you do start writing, you have a clear plan of what you plan to say and what you're going to do. And then when your proposal manager says pens down, you're confident in what you've created because you planned ahead. Second is really understanding the reader intent, making sure that you understand your evaluators and making it easy on them, so that as they are going through and figuring out whether you've met the requirements, you're compliant, that they don't have to try to read between the lines or decipher anything, that you're making it easy on them. And same with avoiding speed bumps. You want it to be very clear what you're proposing and how you're going to solve their issue or make their life easier. And then finally, make sure that you are you can draft quickly at the beginning and put things down, but making sure that you have incorporated time for those revision loops to make sure that you've got that compliance and hit on the right hot buttons, and then a final edit to really make sure that your content is clear and concise and grammatically correct, and that you don't have an embarrassing typo in there that's a distraction to your evaluators.
Thank you, Paige. That was perfect. Okay, we're gonna quickly go through this is almost a checklist of ways that we can ruin writing, to build on what Paige just said, and then she's gonna, Paige, if you don't mind, if you'll go through the tick list after this of customer focused writing. What are the best practices? So Mallory, if you would read these ways we all fall into traps of ruining our writing and wasting everyone's money. This is just based on the simple Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. So here we go. Here's ways to ruin that.
Okay, use weak verbs. Jack and Jill went up the hill to get a pail of water.
A weak verb is get.
Use unfamiliar words. Jack and Jill climbed up the hill to fetch a ewer of water.
Good.
Put introductory phrases at the beginning to push the subject back. Jack and Jill climbed up the hill.
Okay, I'll bet some of us can see ourselves in some of this writing.
Put the action at the end of the sentence. Jack and Jill, to fetch a pail of water, climbed up the hill. Keep modifiers as far as possible from the words they modify. Jack and Jill climbed to fetch a pail of water up the hill.
Okay.
Use passive voice. The hill was climbed by Jack and Jill so that a pail of water could be fetched.
I think someone's trying to stretch out word count there.
That's an easy way to do it. Put the doer at the end of the sentence. To fetch a pail of water, the hill was climbed by Jack and Jill. Introduce false subjects. It was Jack and Jill that climbed up the hill to fetch a pail of water.
I hope you can see, as an evaluator, you're getting very tired by now.
And as an editor, I cut out all the its if they are at the front of a sentence. Pile on the gobbledygook, or fluff. Jack and Jill ascended the acclivity to retrieve a vessel of Adam's ale. Turn verbs into nouns. Jack and Jill did the hill climb for purpose of water retrieval. Use unnecessary technical jargon. Jack and Jill traverse the gradient to fetch an alembic vessel of H2O. Add wordy phrases or more fluff. Jack, in the company of Jill, climbed their way up the hill for the purpose of fetching water in the approximate amount of a pail's full.
All right, the last one here.
There's a lot of ways to mess up sentences, aren't there?
Oh, yeah.
Multiple redundant words. Both Jack and Jill climbed all the way up to the top of the hill summit to fetch a pail filled to its capacity with water.
Yikes.
Throw in cliches indiscriminately. Jack and Jill, who need no introduction, climbed up the hill by leaps and bounds to fetch through their good offices a pail of water by hook or by crook.
Finally.
String lots of nouns together to form the subject. Jack and Jill water retrieval hill ascent was achieved.
Very good. Thank you. That's a mouthful, and when we fall into traps like that in our writing, it becomes, Paige used the word, speed bumps. So we need to be very, very careful. We're almost to the end of this, so I think Paige, if you don't mind just reading through this, we won't elaborate on these, but for those of you that want to go back to this, we'll have all this posted on our website. Here are 10 really good best practices for our writing. So Paige, if you would just kind of read through each of these 10.
Sure, absolutely. And all of these help you really make sure your writing is customer focused. So these first two are, is the customer named before us? Is the customer named more often than us? So making sure that the customer is first before mentioning we, us. Next is the customer's buying vision evident? Then have we linked the buying vision to this solicitation and bid? Are the customer's hot buttons prioritized? So back to that number 5, money waster. And is hot button ownership explicit?
So this one might require a little bit of explanation. So for example, if I'm bidding to David's company and David has actually come out either in a meeting with me or publicly through a press conference or something and said, our vision is in the next 5 years, we're going to be great or whatever. In my proposal, if I'm going to cite that hot button of David's, I should attach him to that hot button and make it explicit that, look, this was the president of the company that said this, or the deputy of this agency. So that's what we mean by attaching a hot button to actual person when possible.
And then are proof statements directly related to customers' hot buttons? Are the benefits of the solution listed before the features? Is the content previewed and organization instructions followed? And is the value proposition clear and our next steps defined?
Great. Thank you. So just 10 guidelines for, as Paige mentioned, customer-focused writing so that we avoid the waste. If we're going to write a proposal, let's be compelling and not waste everyone's time. All right, David, this one's all yours, and this doesn't take a lot of explanation, so you can just rattle through this. And we put it in red because it should be big, bold red. It's a problem.
Obviously, folks, if we don't submit a proposal, guess what? It's wasted money, because in every proposal I have ever worked on, be it federal, be it commercial, be it international, be it state and local, there's always a paragraph in there that says, here is the time and here is the date that this proposal's due. If you're late to any degree, a minute, 10 minutes, guess what? Your proposal is considered non-responsive and will not be read and not be considered. It's very clear. So how can this happen? Well, there's a lot of things, and it just requires us to have backup plans. That's the key point here, is to have backup plans. I can't tell you how many times we decided to produce or run production internally, and we would wait till the last weekend and wait till everybody goes home, including your IT support, and you'd have big heavy-duty printers inside, and you're going to print several thousand pages, and guess what? Your color cartridges run dry, or your printer jams up, or so on and so forth. And now you have no alternative but to panic, and panic in a big way. Here comes a lot of money spent at a Kinko's or someplace else because you didn't have an alternative plan. Now we see a lot of electronic, and we think, oh, that's no problem. Well, hey, guess what? Again, in the production phase, with the multitude of files, with the multitude of version and maybe an inaccurate version revision, all of a sudden now we realize, wow, this wasn't the latest and greatest. Oh, this is due tomorrow. And we're thinking, well, we still got tomorrow at 4 o'clock because we can submit it electronically at 3. And all of a sudden IT fails us. So again, try not to wait till the last day and try and make sure that you're getting all this together. And finally, I can't tell you the countless stories of delivery. Hey, you know, we were pretty sure we said FedEx first thing in the morning, which says by 10. They thought that meant by 2. They got it there at 1:30, but the delivery time was 1 o'clock. There goes 60 days of everybody's work, effort, and money spent. I can remember a very, very, very poignant story from the Missile Defense Agency in Huntsville, Alabama, in not hurricane, but tornado season. A tornado ripped through there, and they were like almost on, you know, martial law. Nobody does anything. But did the Missile Defense Agency, you know, suggest a later due date? No. Hey, they didn't care about the weather, and so if you didn't have it there simply because you were going to use weather as an excuse, guess what? You missed the date. You know, snow now, or whatever. So, folks, the point is to have backup plans. The point is to be ahead of schedule. And the point is to make sure that everybody understands what's happening and do everything in increments. Do tabs first, get those out of the way, print sections, get them done. Binders and covers and all that can be done weeks before. You know, don't wait till the last minute because, you know, Murphy's Law, if it's going to happen, it will at the wrong time. And that's not the time you want this to happen. And it's so obvious if we don't submit on time, it's wasted money because they're not going to accept it.
Amen. You know, it brings me to my high school basketball coach. His motto was no excuses. So that was
Exactly.
That was plastered everywhere in the locker room, and that there is no excuse for a missed deadline. So that's, I'm sure, why people submitted that as the most common or the biggest money waster when we ask for input. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, again. David and Paige, this is just a summary of the list we went through. I'm sure the list could go on and on, but these were the top 10 where we got feedback from people on where are we wasting money. And so I hope this has helped. I hope some of the tips we provided for not wasting money on proposals is helpful. We will post this out on our website so you can replay it or see PDF of the slides. So Paige, David, Mallory, thank you so much. Our future webinars here for the next few months posted here. We invite you, if this has been beneficial to you, to join us. Use this as some guideposts and some continuous learning. We welcome that. So again, thank you for your time today. Have a great rest of the day and rest of the week. And we hope to be with you on the next webinar. Thank you.
Thanks, Brad.
Thanks.